Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Hawk Vision Podcast. I am your host, Chuck Hawkins, here to help you shorten the learning curve on your way to greatness. Make sure that you like, share, subscribe across all of your social media platforms, especially here in YouTube. Guys, we can't grow this show without you. So it is important that you share this podcast with other visionaries just like you. We are doing something big here, working to be the premier location to help you bridge the gap to your personal and professional success. And I can't thank you enough for all of the comments, DMs, and messages. We absolutely cannot grow the show without you. This week's visionary is someone that recently got onto my radar because they're doing some amazing things in the world of product development in that space. More importantly, they're helping entrepreneurs and other visionaries just like us bring our products to market. And we're talking the entire suite of offerings from design help to branding and marketing. He's here today to talk a little bit about his journey as well as the product development world. And I could not be more excited to share. Ian Peterman, welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me. It's I like this.
Absolutely, absolutely. We talked a little bit while we were setting this one up, and I think this is a first to have someone that comes onto the show to discuss bringing a tangible product to market. And so I'm definitely excited about that.
Yeah, it's definitely an area when people say product development, they start thinking apps and a web and
Right.
digital, my little iPhone game, and not as much of the physical world, which is still very much real. We all touch it, but yeah,
Yes.
it's always good to share the other side of it.
Definitely. I think one of the things that has brought product development back to the radar for myself is the pandemic, right? All these tangible items that we needed to touch were no longer on the shelves. And
Yeah.
it became a problem. So we're definitely glad to have you here. I guess we'll kick off with the proverbial, what got you into the space and launching your company.
Well, I kind of have to jump back to when I was about 12. I decided that I wanted to work in product design, be an engineer. That was
Nice.
the kid version of what I wanted to do, and I wanted to run a company, but my father gave me the advice that I should get them experience first. So I started in the design world, and I worked for almost 10 years, and then I was a partner starting a company, a design firm.
Okay.
And that gave me a lot of experience. I learned the branding side of things, the marketing side of the product world too, which is kind of their own massive worlds. And then uh, kind of the company, we decided to dissolve it, and I launched off on my own in 2017 with this company, and I did product design and brought on a really great graphic designer who helps me with the graphic side of the branding.
Nice.
um, and so that now I'm able to do the full service, like you said, all the way from I got an idea, concepting, all the way through building supply chains, doing the branding, kind of that marketing launch, so that after you spend all the money developing a physical product, you can
All of the
actually go
seed investment money
sell
is
it.
gone. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and that's figured out that was a need that people were like, oh, we have this product. It's really great. Now what? Like, how do I
Right.
get all my money back and
That's
have a
so funny.
company?
So I've been having rock stars on the show, man, and overall interviewing various entrepreneurs for years, and everyone kind of has that Avengers style origin story, right? And my daughter is totally intrigued. She's my youngest daughter, I should say, totally intrigued. Where they all had these stories where they started entrepreneurship as a kid. So you were 12. What was the first business?
Oh, well, I did the typical lawn care for friends and
Nice.
family. So
Okay.
I checked that box early on, and then my first quote unquote real business where we made products. My brother and I we made cards, so like greeting cards.
Oh, okay.
We embossed. We got embossing and tools and a light box and stuff, and we set them up. And my parents knew a lady that owned a little store, and we bought one of those rotating
Oh, the little
shelf pillar
carousels.
pillar
Yeah.
shelf things, so you could put all little cards on it.
Right.
And we bought one of those and put it in there, and she got a commission off of what we sold. It was like a full business
I
as a
love it.
teenager.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but yeah, we had to count our inventory, make sure we had enough when she ordered. We had a catalog. So yeah,
Wow.
that was our introduction to running our own. And I was fortunate enough to grow up. My parents were starting companies and ran just small mom and pop level, but it gave me a lot of experience in what does it take to start a company, and
Right.
they don't always work. So
That
that
part.
experience was good too.
I love origin stories of entrepreneurs when when they're kids or whatever, because as an adult, right, you think of getting into the greeting card space, and of course the first thought is I can't compete with Hallmark. But when you're a kid, you're like, I got a product, I'm gonna sell it. Like there's
You make
no
cards. What do you
exactly like I could
mean?
do that. What do you think happens to the belief system as we get older, that
Well,
kind of stops us?
it slowly gets destroyed. I mean, I think there's things that we all do to try to keep that belief and that faith, and I think that's at least I pretend I believe
Yeah,
that I've kept it pretty well because that's what I do with clients.
right.
But it is really, I definitely was a little more that naive level of, oh, I Hallmark, I don't know what that is, but I make cards, right?
Right.
And I think it's something that we all get when we work in a space too long, which happens.
Nice.
And I kind of stay away. My cure to that so far has been that I haven't picked a niche. So a lot of people are like, oh, what's your product you focus on? What's your industry? And I'm like, I don't have one. I work in all of them. I work on baby toys, medical
Nice.
equipment, lasers, you name it. I do that, and I do that to my team. I don't let them get stuck in a rut, and
Oh,
I think
nice.
that helps because when you're entering a new area constantly, there is no such thing as I've been here before. I know
Right.
all players. I know there's this big company that's going to eat me alive. That fear is just not there
Right.
yet.
No, that's huge. I was doing a little bit of research and looking at all the success you've had so far, everything from replacement car parts to RV power washers in-house manufacturing. Are you ever surprised at the ideas that people come up with of things to bring to the market?
I mean, half the time they're ideas that I go, wow, why didn't I think of that one? Because it's just simple ideas that you just don't you're like, oh, that makes perfect sense. Why didn't that exist 20 years ago?
Yeah.
And then there's definitely been ideas where it's, wow, there's a lot of technology behind this. There's been a lot of thought, and like this is something that's really new technology to push forward. So yeah, it
That's
definitely happens.
awesome. What does it take to specifically bring a product to market? Like, I had an idea once. It was for a certain kind of wave cap. It's totally cultural, the thing. And once the amount of capital I was quoted a few times, I was like, this is impossible. There's no way that you can bring this to market. What does it take step by step, I guess, high level to bring a new product to market?
Well, in terms of like order of operations, the actual actions that you take, there's if you're starting at the really very beginning, typically what we do is we start with like the ideal scenarios. We'd start looking at what is this going to take? What is this? We start scoping out the project first,
Gotcha.
and say, okay, well, what do we want? What are our goals? What are actual goals? Because you could say, I want to make a tape measure, and one person could have one set of goals, and you end up with a laser tape measure, and another person has a different set of goals, and you end up with, actually I have one on my desk, one of these,
Nice. Nothing better than props.
right? So you end up, one's a laser version and one's a metal reel with
Right.
numbers written on it, right? So you that kind of goal setting, a lot of people, they kind of skip, or they have the idea like, oh, I want a tape measure, I want to measure things. Well,
Right.
what does that mean? And so when you when you go through that process, you end up with different products. So we do that, and you go through concepting. It's the industrial design, all the cool sketches people kind of think of putting your ideas to paper and being like, what do we think it's going to look like? How do we make it look the right way? And then we'd go into CAD, we start taking it to 3D modeling, doing engineering, kind of the technical stuff. So if you think of like a mechanical engineer,
Yes.
that's the section right there. And throughout that process too, one of the things that I've really been pushing our clients and we make happen now is being aware of like, what's the impact of the product? What does sustainability look like? What is, what is your whole supply chain? And one of the funny things that came out of COVID and pandemic is running out of toilet paper. People realize that there's a supply chain and it actually matters a lot.
Yes.
There's logistics, and it's more than just it magically arrives at a store and you have it. And so that actually created some very interesting and eye-opening conversations with clients of ours. Like, oh yeah, well, what about the supply chain? Can we get our parts? And those are questions I never heard from first time people starting a product, which is great. People became aware.
Yes.
And then once you get through engineering, we go through a process called design for manufacturing, where we say, okay, well, we prototyped it. It looks good. It looks great. Can we manufacture it? Can we manufacture it? How can we optimize this to make it the same quality, work with tooling, and not cost a fortune in order to actually produce it?
Yes.
And then at that point, that's at the point where you could click a button and say, I want to order 10,000 of these, and you'd get 10,000 as long as you pay them.
Nice, nice. So you mentioned supply chain earlier, and that's one of the things that it shocked me because in a double life, I used to teach lean principles, Six Sigma, that whole
Oh, yeah,
process
yeah.
improvement thing. And one of the things that COVID showed is that you can be too lean, right? Is you
Yes.
can make sure there's zero waste. And then when something happens where you need a huge order or that their little wrinkle in the supply chain, then all of a sudden nobody can get anything. Um, how tight does it have to be? Let's say you have that tape measure that's on your desk, and I've created the tape measure, and now I want to get that into my local couple of stores, and then a store, on the other side of the country is like, hey, I heard about your tape measure, I want to use it. How lean do you need to be, and how much give kind of needs to happen in that supply chain scenario?
So there's a few different factors that go into that. One is expectation setting. So
Okay.
when people are ordering, if you have on your website ships in 3 days, well, you better be able to back that up.
Right.
And so there's a lot that goes into that in terms of something that I do with clients. If they're in that growth, if they're like, hey, we want to plan for a hockey stick growth and we want to be able to do that, we do things like set up 4 manufacturers and you're only using one right now.
Nice.
But
Okay.
if you get a big order in and the lead times of all of them, so you can be like, our orders take 3 weeks to ship, knowing that your slowest manufacturer will take 2 weeks to get to you.
Yes.
So you set a good expectation that gives you a buffer, and then you can go from 1 to 4 manufacturers with an email. You can say, okay, we need X number from you and X number from you in the next 2 weeks, and then you can basically have things set up in order to prove that. But there's still a spool up time because it's not instant.
Yes, definitely.
So that, and then really it just has to do with how much inventory are you willing to be sitting on dollar wise. Because a lot of the lean really just has to do with, we don't want to be spending money on product we don't ship in the next, you don't want to sit on money
Right.
basically in hard goods for 6 months or 12 months sitting in a warehouse that you probably are paying for. So there's
Yeah.
like this cost analysis balance between, I pay $5 a square foot per month for storage space, but we also we want to have a buffer, so we need X. And so it's this constant balance. And in my experience, an event of pandemic size usually breaks most supply chains. There's not really anybody's, except for maybe a few that have goods that are super long term, where they
Right.
can cheaply store it for 12 months and not have a problem. But that's rare. That's a rare case to sit on that.
No, that makes sense. I think, and we'll talk about this probably a little bit later, but Fulfilled by Amazon, that kind of service that they have, they showed really good resilience in regards to that supply chain. Like we were, I think day 26 in the house, and we hadn't, attacked each other or anything yet, but packages were still coming to the door from Amazon. This is like I'm risking my life going to Costco for toilet paper, but packages were still coming from Amazon. So I think that they have that, obviously that model where they ship from a million different places and try to figure that out. So that's awesome. Which is easier, bringing a product to market or building the Ian Peterman firm?
um, I mean, in theory, building the Peterman firm is easier
In
because
theory,
I do the work and they
sure,
bring the money. But really, the risk and the time and the effort, launching a product isn't an easy process. That's
sure,
why I and everyone else that does what I do exists. So
yes,
you know, it also varies on the product. I've worked on products that were just, a little part that you made. That's easy. You can launch that in a couple months.
nice,
Official launch time. I think it took me maybe 48 hours to launch my company. And
okay,
I filed with the state, got a
right,
domain, done. Um,
that's funny.
but to what success level, and that'll
Fair.
there's a
Yeah,
variable.
yeah, definitely fair. I think that people they can't, it's hard to draw the parallels, right? Because when you're in the business of helping other people bring their visions to life, people forget that you doing that is actually part of the vision that you had for yours. And so
Right.
that's what made me ask that question, is like how does it feel to have a company whose purpose is to help other people, run their companies, more professionally, more profitable, and be able to get their product out there? How does that part feel?
Well, I love it because it really is the epitome of your success is my success, because literally if my clients don't launch products, I'm not doing my job right.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love helping people. And you're right. It's one of my missions is to help other people achieve their visions and their goals. And that's a huge driving my success is helping more and more more people do that, which is good. And it's kind of the difference between a service based company and a product based company too. Is that delineation of I'm a service based company. Well, that means my goal is to make other people successful in whatever they're doing. Whereas a product company, you're trying to make yourself typically a little bit more successful, or through a productized format, which is a little bit different. It's just a little different thinking when you lay out a business plan and how you're going to launch.
Got it. Got it. I usually ask how important networking is, and has been to your success so far. But at your level, I wanted to ask not only that, but how important delegation has been for your clients.
Um, well, networking definitely it's been very valuable. I've gained clients that way. I've gained great resources, people that I work with. I have designers and engineers that I've hired and had on teams that have been amazing that I've connected with networking. So um, it's been a big part, and far more than advertising. I tried advertising. It was advertising for services,
It's the
not as
hardest
good.
thing in the world.
Not
Yeah,
as good. Networking for services, way better, way way better to do.
absolutely.
Um, and as far as delegation, a delegation is the reason I'm still operating today. And it really is like I used to do everything myself. I started out that way, just me.
Yeah.
But as you get more clients, it becomes impossible, and you end up uh, dropping your own company in order to build
Mm,
theirs. Because of what I do is so usually time intensive, right? I'm helping somebody launch a product, which is a company basically.
right.
And so I tried different ways of delegating, and it's definitely delegating for my own company is good. And basically manage the product launch for my clients, and then at this point I bring in a team. So I'll have a team of maybe 10 people on a bigger project working all at once. But yeah, without delegation, it would not work.
It
I
would
need the
all.
support.
Is there a part of this secret sauce where you guys do you use focus groups? for various products, or is this something that you kind of have a different approach to in terms of when we launch a product, we kind of just stick to the demographics and who would use this and where and why?
So usually it depends on the budget of the project. So
Okay.
smaller projects, because focus groups, it's not that they're super expensive, but if you're going to utilize them properly, you can't just one isn't really enough. You're gonna want to do
Got you.
one, then you're gonna want to, produce whatever, prototype it, get feedback on that, and kind of walk
Mm,
through. So it can end up adding a fair amount of time and cost sometimes. So
yes.
a lot of smaller projects we do, instead of focus groups, we do just market research in
Okay.
terms of looking at existing data rather than talking to live people about it. And then projects that have the budget and the time frame where we can engage in a focus group, then we have a couple partners that's what they do, is build focus groups, or send a prototype to them and they use it and test it and abuse it and tell you what breaks.
Oh yes. It's funny. I've been a part of the focus groups for different stuff, and it's always hilarious to me where they try to, when they bring you in, they say, you guys were randomly selected and yada yada yada, but they forget the part where you actually filled out this form and you can kind of figure out the process to the questions that they're asking on what they're, about to do the focus group on. So I think focus groups are awesome, but I think it actually makes sense when you say it depends on the scope and budget of the project. Um, you mentioned something while we were talking a little earlier about conscious design. Talk to me a little bit more about that and what that is.
Yeah, so last year I was asked the question, what is unique about what you do? How are you special?
Wow.
And that was
No pressure.
no pressure, but like what's really special about you?
Yes.
And that, through a year of thinking through that and coming up with a good answer, I basically formed together. I was like, well, what I really focus on is, yeah, we do design. Everybody can do design, product design. I'm not inventing a new method of developing a product. We've been doing like that's successful, but there's certain things that I've picked up from different design areas. So like human-centered design is a great approach. The industrial design world is really versed in it. It doesn't really seep outside of it all
Yes.
the time, as it should, but it doesn't look at sustainability. And last year, of course, there's a lot of what is the social side of the social responsibility, right? That
Yes.
these things are coming to mind to people, and so it seemed like a good time to just put it all together and be like, well, what is the design approach that would be able to make sure that every person that's involved or touches the product is thought about.
Mm.
How do we describe being aware of the ecological impact of a product and the human part? And obviously we want it to be profitable and successful so you can go make more products too.
Right. Right.
And the word that came to mind was just conscious, just because if you're not
Yes.
conscious and aware, you can't make anything better. And
Right.
so that's basically, I created what I call the Peterman method. And basically I just added to a regular design process. Well, at the beginning, you should think about who are the users, and not just I'm a user X and I'm going to touch this product and I'm going to go, we'll use tape measure again, I'm going to go measure something. Like
Yes.
what is the product actually, what is it achieving, how is it helping people, what's the environmental impact of all the materials and supply chain. And people are becoming more, consumers are becoming more aware. They know, oh, it's not just one person that makes a product, there's a giant supply chain
Yeah.
behind. Like the raw materials doesn't just magically appear in California, and Apple produces a iPhone and all the material just happens to be homegrown
Right.
in
Right.
Palo Alto, right? So people are becoming more aware, and as companies, in my mind, the greenwashing phase is kind of over. People are seeing through that, and
Yeah.
so it's kind of my way, like, well, if you want to like step past that and actually be aware, we need to have this conscious design approach of what is the actual impact, and it's more than just the end consumer. right?
Nice.
What is
No,
all
that
of
makes
that?
sense. I like it because as we've done these interviews, I think we get more conscious and aware of how everything kind of plays a part with each other, how everything touches. And so I have a friend that is a sales manager for Audi out here in Oakland and in the Bay Area, I should say. And one of the things that he mentioned was that they had a little bit of a low inventory right now because of the chip shortage that's kind of affecting everything. And so I started, I was really kind of just thinking about that, and I was like, wow. So the production of the PS5 has been slowed down because of the chip shortage, and of course they tried to mask it as, we only want so many out there, so we don't
Right,
saturate the
limited
market.
edition.
Right, limited edition. They tried to do that. We saw through that pretty quickly, but as that chip shortage became more real, which is back to the supply chain part, now we're seeing that it's really affecting like things that we thought would always be produced at mass with like cars and iPhones and things like that. A lot of the production has been slowed down, and finding those raw materials in a conscious way, seeing past just the green part, I think is absolutely huge because it allows you to identify hurdles before you run into them. So I think
Yes.
that's awesome. um, as you look back, we all have that I don't want to do this anymore moment, right? We're just like, I think I had mine Monday, this past Monday. What keeps you going when you get to that part of, I think we call it, I just want to win. I need a win, right? But when the wins aren't coming and you start to question yourself, question the process, what keeps Ian going in those moments?
Oh, what keeps me going? Um, I have to give credit to my fiance. She's definitely supportive
Smart
as I go
man.
as I go through. So that's on record.
Yes.
Um,
Recorded YouTube for life. I love it.
recorded, going public. It's going to be on the internet. Um, but that obviously they're my family, and it's also just taking a step back, taking a little breather, and going, is this me? Is this really me? Is this a problem? Or do all businesses do this? And once you take a step back a little bit and you go, yeah, no, this is a process. Like, I didn't instantly become a failure in the last 24 hours. Like, I didn't go commit some major crime. I'm not behind bars.
Right.
I didn't do anything to cause an immediate 180 and a drop in a few
Right.
hours. So really, this is time. Like, that, we just need to have more time. I need to, go do something else. And that's been doing things that are fun, that are not work related. I have to say is been a huge part of it. So like, I
Nice.
play soccer, I play a violin,
Oh
I
wow.
spend some time doing those things, and then I come back and I'm like, okay, well, this is fine. I can work on things, and I don't feel like a failure because I went and did something I'm good at and enjoy. That's not work.
Right. Right. No,
And
that's strong.
it's it's taken me years. I've been running my own company for, well, since 2017, and then 4 or 5 years partner at the other company. So
Nice.
I didn't get it in the last company. I definitely worked through all that, doing 80 plus hours a week, not
Yeah.
not healthy, um, a little bit too gung ho into the work until it happens. And now I'm wiser. I've done that route,
You have the
and
fiance now, so she's made you smarter.
yes, IQ definitely went up.
I love it. I love it. I always get excited about that part of the story because I think in the entrepreneurship realm we tend to buy into these mantras of 9 to 5 you earn a living, 5 to 9 you build your lifestyle, and like we buy into all these mantras, but we don't necessarily do a good enough job of telling the truth of what it looks like, right? Of doing
Right.
the 80-hour weeks, and while you're gaining experience and while you may have some success, you are absolutely sacrificing mental space. You know what I mean? And
Oh, it was way more than mental space. Your health, your physical health. You're
yeah,
not, and we have this culture of burn the candle at both ends, and we celebrate it. We're like, oh well, that person, they look exhausted. Obviously, they're successful.
Right.
They're sleeping 3 hours a week, and there's even that whole attitude of, oh, billionaires, they only sleep like 4 hours a day because
Right.
obviously they're making so much money, they have to be working all the time. And then contrary to that, you talk to some like famous YouTubers, they're like, oh well, I work like 6 hours a day and I shoot videos for fun and this is great. I
Yes.
make millions of dollars a year. And so we have this like dichotomy too of both kind of ends, and the rest of us are squarely in the middle, and we work a lot some weeks and then we have to take a break because otherwise we're going to not be very healthy.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we just don't think about it, but that's where a lot of success is, well, how happy are you doing it too? And people
Right.
forget like that mental side of, yeah, you're working at 80 hours a week, you're building a company, you can scale it to, $1 billion company in the next 5 years, but are you going to take 3 years to recover from that? Like what
Right.
what is that toll going to be? Because the bill eventually comes. It's just,
Absolutely.
when are you going to pay it and how big is it going to be?
I think that's the fascinating thing about, I don't want to age myself, but we're in that group, we being, people of my age, are in that group where the Think and Grow Rich books and the Rich Dad Poor Dad and all that stuff was like the Bible to entrepreneurship.
Oh
And
yeah.
then Instagram happened, right? And then YouTube happened and Facebook happened. And now I think that the generation under us has been able to watch both generations and be like, yeah, but you're miserable. Like, why are you working so hard when you could just do this? And we're all
Right.
like, because that wasn't available, and now we don't know it, and now we're working to catch up on both sides.
Right. We helped invent and power the technology. We didn't figure out how to make money
How
with
to
it.
use it, right? Right. I think that is absolutely important to know. Wow, that's huge. What's been your favorite product so far? I know you're not supposed to have favorite clients, but we all do. So what's been what's been your favorite product so far?
One of the most fun projects is there's a company called Barefoot Sound that I helped design. They had where I started working him as an employee originally, and then I ended up
Okay.
working contract work as well. And when he had moved up to Portland and he had no employees, I was employee number 2 because he
Nice.
relocated, and he had two speakers, and they were definitely dated from the 90s design. He knew it, but he was selling. And over 3.5 years, we redesigned those two, and I helped design and launch like 4 more speakers products. And then we
Nice.
actually designed so many during that period. Just recently, in the past like year, so I stopped designing for him maybe 6 years ago,
Okay.
7 years ago, and just like 2 years ago, he finally launched something that I didn't design.
Wow.
So
Wow.
we packed in a lot of design work, which was great because we played with sound technology. I love music, so getting to work in that industry and be like, oh
Yeah.
look, Lady Gaga is using the speakers you helped design to record her next album, and
That's
all these famous, like,
crazy.
oh, like this famous person is taking pictures with this product you worked on. Like it was really good. It was really fun to just be like, oh yeah, I helped do that.
So that whole answer is going to make me ask about royalties. Like, how does that part kick in to
Oh,
the work that you do? Because I think patents and royalties are the two parts that people always wonder about in your space in product design, right? Because you help to bring it to fruition, but then like once you get paid, what happens after that?
so once I get paid, I wait for you to have a new project. I don't. Some projects I'll have a portion of, or if I help set up and I'm working with the manufacturer, I've occasionally worked in royalty deals or percentages off of
Nice.
manufacturing, so that
Okay.
you know if the product is being purchased and sold, then I get something. But 90% of the time, I'm a what you call work for hire. So once I'm done
Gotcha.
and I've delivered, you don't pay me anymore.
Nice.
I walk off. And yeah, I get a lot of people that talk to me like, oh, well, can you develop a product for licensing? And everybody
Yes.
thinks it's super easy. Like, oh, well, we'll just design it and somebody will buy it, right? And the truth of it is you're going to put a lot of design work. And I actually I made a graph, and it's really just an X. It's like, well, at the beginning, you do no work, right? You do no work and you're like, oh, I have an idea. And the chance of anybody buying it is zero. Like you right? And or the length of
Yes.
time it's going to take to sell it's basically infinite. And as you put more and more time in it, people are gonna look at it and you're decreasing risk basically. So
Nice.
if I say, oh, I have a new idea for a tape measure, everybody's go, great. That's super risky because no one's invented a tape measure before to even have a
Right.
market, right? And then at the end of it is, well, I've been selling this tape measure for 2 years and I have the sales data to show that with a marketing budget of 500,000, I'll become $1 billion company in 2 years.
Wow.
Then people go, ah, well, we want your product now because you have zero risk. You have
Right.
basically this risk proof, and that's the thing that people forget is that the big companies that have the money to do it,
Yes.
they are risk adverse, extremely risk
Absolutely.
adverse, and you're at the high risk point, and unless it's a technology, so if you come up with say some kind of new X-ray or some new technology that really is groundbreaking,
Yeah.
even then it's hard. Like I've worked with people that have had groundbreaking technology and they struggle to get angel investments.
Wow.
So it's not just I have an idea, now let's go license it and patent it.
Right. No, I think that's why we always see that most important question on Shark Tank, which is, tell me about your sales, right? How many sales do you have so far? And
Exactly.
that's why that kicks in, because they want to know that there's a track record that'll show that they'll get their money back. Yeah.
Right, because if you were giving your money to somebody, you
Yes.
would want it to come back with more. Like that's the whole trade is they give you money and you give them more than they gave you
More money on the
originally,
back end, right?
right? Like,
That's huge. Are services like Fulfilled by Amazon a competitor in your space, or is there a bit of a difference versus what you do to help your clients?
yeah, so they're actually something that we help guide our clients towards.
Oh,
So
wow. Okay.
really, Fulfilled by Amazon is a tool in a large toolbox of how to get your product out there. So kind of the distribution models.
Yes.
You can use Amazon. You have basically the direct to consumer. You have wholesale, and then there's some like variants of it that you can get 50 different versions of. But really, it comes down to whether are you selling it directly to your own consumer, your own
Mhm.
customer, and you own that relationship, or are you using somebody else? And Fulfilled by Amazon is really just another form. Like if you were to go to Walmart, it's really no different because
Gotcha.
Amazon owns the customer. Amazon, your
Amazon
product
owns everything.
Amazon owns everything.
Right.
You ship like Fulfilled by Amazon, you ship a product, they say we want 50 crates of your product shipped to this warehouse. You do that, and then everything else is Amazon, and you just get a check, however often it's set up.
Yes.
And the same thing with ordering to like Walmart. If you got your product into Walmart or Kroger stores or any of those, it's really the same thing because you're shipping product to them, they're warehousing it, it's on their shelf. And an
Right.
Amazon shelf is digital, but there is no difference really in the actual logistics.
So are they responsible for selling it at that point, or is that still part of your
If you do
uh
fulfill by Amazon, they take a higher percentage, and it's all them. So
mm,
it's all they'll do whatever they want, and they're selling it. You can run ads for it, of course, which nobody complains about,
right.
because that just means everyone makes more money.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, it's really managed by them. If you do the self, and that's where a lot of people are like, well, I just sell on Amazon. At that point, Amazon's like eBay. It's just a place that
Mm,
you're selling a product on. It's another, Etsy, eBay, and Amazon at that point become the same thing. It's just different users, and you're still selling a product and you personally, or whoever's doing it for you, somebody is shipping the product to the customer, and it's
Yes.
not Amazon. Amazon at that point is just like eBay, where it's a platform, it pops up there, they take the money, you get the money, they take their cut, and Amazon's done.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Customer service over.
Customer
No,
service over.
no prime shipping.
Right.
So yeah, that's usually the difference.
I like it. I like it. I know you have an affinity for green products. Is there a dream product or genre that Ian would love to work on?
Oh, I love space. So my ideal is if I can break into the aerospace world, that would be amazing to work in that space. Um, pun.
Right.
And and kind of the other is I don't is really more about helping in any industry that's interested in making products that are more sustainable and more socially minded.
Are so my question being, we've gone through this. I think we see products as secular. They're staple products like your toothpaste, your detergent, your things that we have around the house, and we just, they're almost on auto ship, right? Your toilet paper, your paper towels. What can we look at that maybe we don't think about is a sustainable product, but also something that we continuously need?
Mm. Well, there's a lot of so like paper products, for example.
Okay.
They're they're something that we need a lot of, and depending on how you source it, they are sustainable. So it really kind of that sustainability thing, it depends on the material. You can have two products that are pretty similar, and sustainability level on one could be completely sustainable or even regenerative. So
Yeah.
something that I've come to be looking at is regenerative products. So there's, I think it's Epic Provisions, I believe is the name. They grow beef. They sell jerky.
Okay.
But what they do is instead of taking good land, they actually take the land that no farmers want because it's been used up.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it's not going to grow a crop that anybody thinks worth, and they use farming techniques to actually rebuild the soil through
Wow.
using. They have different types of animals that go across it. They do irrigation and things like that, and so they actually end up having a carbon negative
Mm,
beef product, which of all
nice.
things is really hard to do,
Right.
right? But so that kind of technology is something that I really enjoy, is that looking at how do you make it even better than just sustainable. But kind of back to your question of what makes it, it really depends. You're sourcing, like there's a lot of products that we have, anything that we use, it's really like aluminum cans. You're able to take that product and recycle it. And I think when you buy an aluminum can now, it's like it can be, depending on who's making it,
Sure.
90% recycled aluminum, which is, for most materials, that's a huge percentage of
Right.
recycled versus raw, which is great, and it's something that makes them far more sustainable.
Yeah. I think a company like 3M, who does your Post-its and your cardboard boxes and things like that, have a really good model just in terms of, trying to bring it to something everybody can understand. I think 3M has a really good model of being able to create something, paper product for the most part. And then they have this recycle program where they use their own products to make other products. So that's kind of big. What have you learned in business? If someone asked Ian, what's the two of the biggest things that you've learned so far in product development and in business, what would you say those two things are so far?
Um, Really, nobody knows how much time and effort it takes to make a physical product unless unless you've done it before. I've tested that theory, and every time people underestimate it.
Yeah,
um, and it's which is fine. I basically end up being a coach for my clients. So like, okay, well, let me walk you through what it actually takes
sure.
to make this happen. And business wise, like one of the biggest things, and it comes from brand working in branding, some is is in business, people don't story tell as much as they should. And
Mm,
that's something that it even crosses into the product side, where because we work in branding as well, we're very aware of your product, and your product is part of your brand and it's part of a story. And so one of the things that talking to people like, oh, well, I just want to start this company and blah blah blah, like this is what I want to do, and
yeah.
everybody focuses on the what I want to do, and the whole, well, why, what is the impact, like what, back to this
Yes.
conscious design approach, it even works for businesses, like, well, what is the impact that you want to have, like what are you trying to create, what is, it needs to be more than that, because a widget doesn't really do anything, like it does something, but it's not
Right.
a story, people aren't going to care, right? And so creating a brand, like branding matters for small businesses. And then I
Right.
did a unknowing experiment, because I wrote an article about that, and I put it on a
Okay.
Medium, and it skyrocketed. I got the most shares on Twitter, and it just kind of blew up. And I was not expecting that, because I'd written some articles before, and they're like, oh, 5 views, 5 views, seven
Yeah.
views.
Yeah.
And then this one hits like 100 in the first week or two. I'm like, okay, cool. And there's just
People want
the
to know.
title, the people, it's just the title is small, like uh, branding matters for small businesses too. And it's just that idea that people, especially a startup, they don't focus on the branding, the telling the story, because people want to know the person behind the company. Like,
Right.
yeah, cool, you're a company, great, but we know there's people behind it. So why don't we connect with the people behind it? Like, let's be person to person.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the one of the biggest things in business, that it's been like, got to tell people, we have to coach our clients through this, because it's so powerful. It's
Yeah. I think people forget with all the technology and all the apps, people forget that two things. I think they forget that there's no app for people skills, right? And then second, I think that people forget sometimes that they're in the people business. And that's why you always hear a certain generation would always talk about facts tell, stories sell, right? And that story of why you're in business is, to what you're saying, it's what makes people believe, and it's what makes people, buy in. And so you have to have that. And that's, I think, the secret sauce of branding that nobody talks about. Even if you look on Instagram, it's, tell me, what did you have for breakfast? What are your favorite hobbies? More so than how good is the picture. Like, people want to know what led up to the picture, the behind the scenes part
right.
is, what pulls everybody in. So absolutely crazy. And Twitter, by the way, for your story that popped, you got all, is by far my favorite social media app. I
I'm warming
absolutely
up to
love.
it.
Yeah, it's Twitter's the place where you have to have thick skin. It will escalate quickly. It will also die quickly. But I think it's the most honest of social media apps. I will say, I think it's the most honest of social media apps. So, yeah, definitely a favorite. Getting close to wrapping up, what does Ian do for personal growth?
All I've done, I do all kinds of things that I've done a lot of, like, I enjoy reading books, so I am not con I should be reading more, but
We all should,
I
trust me.
think we all should.
Yeah.
Um, I have to say that, but I read books on, like, how to grow myself, organization, things that are even just um, you think that and I find a lot of value in the, oh, well, I know how to organize stuff,
Right.
but you end up reading a book and you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. I used to know how to do that and I forgot because I got too busy doing other
Yes.
things. So I spend time kind of refreshing myself that all the things that we all know that we should be doing, but we tend to forget at some point. I need
Yeah.
a refresher. Um, I've done I've taken some Tony Robbins courses.
My guy.
Yeah, those are fun if you I think it did his personal power, which is intense if you actually
Yes. Have you
if
done
you act
the coal walk? Have you done
no,
the
I
hot
haven't.
fire walk?
So I started doing his stuff maybe a year before pandemic, and then by the
Gotcha.
time I was
Okay.
like, oh, I might go to an event, it was like, no events, nobody's going anywhere.
Right.
So
Oh my God. I had a friend
I
do the
would
fire
love to.
walk. I had a
Oh,
friend
you,
do the firewalk,
oh
and
man.
he's like, it's whatever's in the Kool-Aid there, you really don't feel it. Like it's something happens. He's like, I never felt a thing. I didn't blister up afterwards, you know. So I'm like, okay, either there's a whole lot of NDAs going on, or it really there's something we can tap into. I just had to put that out there. He's so really quickly. He's one of those guys that's he's in network marketing, absolute rock star. Um, but his belief system thrives on experiences, and so that's why I was asking, you know, initially, what do you do to for your personal growth, because that's, I believe that's how we, you know, get stronger in business.
It is, and I've I've tried some interesting. I've gone to like a shaman. I've gone to,
Nice.
you know, there's so many, as you're saying, these experiences, right? And if I'm doing, you know, pure Western American, there's a pretty limited set of experiences that you can have.
Yes.
um, and so I try things like that of just, okay, well, what are other things that I can do that are outside of the norm, because the results I'm looking for, successfully launching products consistently, isn't
Yeah.
in the norm. Like I've averaged out the numbers, and it's like 97% of ideas fail
Wow.
if you take in all the potential failure options. And a lot of that has to do with quitting. People will just quit. I've had
Yes.
those projects of working with a client, and then they go, I'm not going to do anything with this. It's like,
Right.
you spend money, like you actually paid me. Like, what are you, what are you doing? You're increasing the failure rate. You're
Right. You're messing it up
making
for
it look
everybody.
worse. Come on, man, just try it. Couldn't get them to do it, but,
I love it.
but yeah. So I try all kinds of stuff because I find it interesting, and if you're not looking for common results, you kind of need to step outside and try some new stuff.
Yeah, that's huge. What does the word vision mean for you?
Mm. It's To me, it's something that you're looking to achieve. It's your long. I see it as like long vision. It's something that you're really. I want this thing, and it's more than just a thing. It's an idea, and it's a goal to achieve, and
Okay.
it's um in some ways vision kind of mixes into the unachievable goal of like, well, I want to do this, and it's always sitting there. You'll never completely achieve it, which I know some people are like, oh, well, mission means that.
Sure, sure.
I get in my head. I have to look at the definition of mission and vision in order to tell people properly. But when I
Sure,
think of
sure.
it off the cuff, it's, well, what are you really aiming at? What is your overarching goal? Like, what's the legacy you're wanting to build?
Mhm.
What's going to be left behind? You know, is your
Nice.
vision like, I want to make this huge thing and impact all these people's lives? It's got to be a little bit bigger for me
Yeah.
than just a little goal.
No, that makes sense. What about the word belief? What does that word mean for you?
Mm, I can mean a lot of a lot of things. Um, I definitely comes up religion.
Sure.
You know, that's one that comes up pretty easily for me.
Yep.
Um, I was raised Christian,
Sure.
um, and but it also comes to like, what is yours? So, like, you know, it's not just religion, but what are things that are true for you? And I think
Nice.
that's like your own personal truth. What are you, you know, because there's the external, right? You have religion, and you have other
Right.
people saying, oh, do this and do that, and you can believe them.
Mhm.
And then, but it's also huge for me is this internal, what is actually true for me? What is my belief? And my belief usually is what I can achieve too.
Yeah.
And I see that as a good and limiting thing, depending on what you believe. You believe you can do it. You believe you can do it, then you will. If you don't believe you can do it, then you won't. And
Yeah.
I find it to be really tied with your personal power.
Nice. Very nice. What's next for the Ian Peterman firm, and where can everybody find you online?
All right. I mean, right now, just enjoying working on the projects that we have and wanting to help more people make sustainable and awesome products. And I'm working on a book, Conscious Design, because
Let's go.
it's worth it, worth it, I think, to write. So, been working on that for a little while, and yeah, I said I would launch it about a month ago, but I've been taking longer to edit than I initially planned. I was a little ambitious with my goals,
Oh man.
but I will be sharing that once we go live. And for finding me, anything at Peterman Firm. So petermanfirm.com, handle on Instagrams, Peterman Firm. I grabbed all of them. So if you look up Peterman Firm, you'll be good. And you can find me personally on LinkedIn, just Ian Peterman. If you add design, there shouldn't be a problem. Usually number one anyway, but
Nice.
design will grab it.
That is awesome. So really quickly, just so you know, I recently interviewed someone who took a total combined off and on 14 years to write a book. So you got time. You're on track, right?
Well,
You'll be good.
at least they completed it, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
that's the journey is the fun part. So
Yeah.
as long as you don't quit, then you're good.
That's it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you have been rocking with the great one, Ian Peterman, and yours truly, Chuck Hawkins, here at the Hawk Vision Podcast. I hope this interview was informative. I hope we added a smile to your day, but more importantly, we hope that we've helped you shorten the learning curve on your journey to success, talking about bringing products to fruition. Like, share, and subscribe across all of your platforms. Send in your messages, your suggestions. I cannot continue to grow this show without you, my visionaries. I am so appreciative that you guys gave us some of your time today. And you know how it goes. There's absolutely no miracle that ever happens without someone doing something. We'll either see you at the top or from the top. The choice is yours. Ian, thank you so much for your time today, for joining the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.